Welcome one and welcome all. You have reached the Partial Historians and we've got a brand new episode just for you. I am one Dr. Radness and sitting over here is...
Hello, it is I, Dr. Greenfield.
What? Where's my regular co-host?
I am your regular co-host.
Alright, so Dr. G, we are tracing the history of Rome from the founding of the city. And last time I checked, we had just finished quite lengthy negotiations over this whole issue of who's going to live on this land, and who's going to live on that land, and who's going to share the land, and who's going to farm the land.
Yes, the Romans are in a really particular situation right now. This is an ongoing conflict between the patricians and the plebeians about navigating how they interact with each other.
Yeah.
What are their real rights? And for the plebeians, it's obviously a bit more dire than the patricians, because the patricians are the haves, and the plebeians are the have-nots.
Yeah, exactly. The decision kind of could potentially mean life or death to some of them.
For the plebeians, yes, it's much more serious. So they're probably a lot more emotionally involved.
Yes.
But the patricians are really sort of holding on by the skin of their teeth.
As good patricians do.
Grasping, as usual, at potential straws.
So the last time we'd seen the Senate debating about how they were going to resolve this issue, which had been raised by one consul Cassius, and then just really exploded from there.
Yeah, this issue of the distribution of public land.
Yeah, and so we ended things with basically the Senate having had their say, and it was the end of the consulship of Virginius and Cassius, the consuls at war. The agrarian... No, I have no clever name.
Yeah, so these two consuls, they can't find a way to get along with each other because they disagree about the division of this public land between just Roman citizens or all citizens who fall under Roman auspices, which now includes the Latins and the Venetians.
Yeah, and that seems to be the sticking point because normally I think the plebeians and the tribunes of the plebs would have totally been on the side of give them the land. But with the whole ally issue, that's the spanner in the works, which is causing things to slow down and dividing them.
Yeah, and Spurius Cassius has been accused of being a populist and also trying to bolster his own claims to tyrannical power.
Yes, and I have very mixed feelings about him because what with current events, I feel like populist is a dirty word. But at the same time, I kind of like some of the things that Cassius has said.
Being a demagogue is not terrible.
No.
If what you say is ultimately useful.
I feel like I'm being tricked.
But the trouble with a populist is that they won't hold any position other than what is popular.
True.
So
where's their virtuous, Dr. G?
Yes,
Where's the virtuous?
Exactly. So we enter into what is around about 485 BC.
Yes.
Sometimes labelled as 483, depending on your source material. And we have a new pair of consuls. Very exciting stuff. And we're entering what is indeed a new phase of consulship history, really.
Ooh.
Because we have the consulship of Quintus Fabius Vibulanus, and he is serving with Servius Cornelius Maluganensis.
That is a mouthful.
So many syllables. But Quintus Fabius is going to be the first of many Fabii to hold the consulship
the
over the next few years.
Yeah, they're one of the elite families of Rome, like the real elite.
Yeah, and they do have what still seems to be quite an unprecedented run on family members holding the consulship in successive years.
Very true.
Quintus is just paving the way for everybody else.
Yeah.
Little do they know.
Sorry, I don't know. I'm trying not to say anything because I know some things about the Fabii and how things turn out for them, and I don't want to say.
No spoilers. No spoilers.
I'm worried that if I make too many jokes, I'm going to give it away.
So, both of these consuls come from patrician backgrounds. Surprise, surprise.
Yeah, we haven't quite crossed that bridge yet.
And they're both considered quite young for the position.
How old are they?
I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, Dionysius just say they are young indeed in years.
See, I feel like that probably means they're 40s or something.
I'd say so.
Yeah.
But they are most distinguished of their body. Hello.
Well,
young and
it's about
hot.
time. I'm licking my pinky and my thumb, and I'm greasing down my eyebrows.
Hello, hot consuls. What have you got in store for us?
Are these people the JFK of their generation?
I don't know. These virile young specimens. Turns out they're going to be very dangerous.
Like JFK.
For the women and everybody else.
Yeah.
Turns out that you both have a great band of supporters because they both come from extremely wealthy families.
Yeah, well, the Cornelia and the Fabii, yeah.
Yeah.
What a formidable team.
Yeah, so they're young, they're rich, and apparently they're good looking. It's the trifecta of terribleness, really. Just you wait.
I'm getting excited. Either that or I've just had coffee.
But apparently they're not inferior in civil affairs.
Okay.
So, despite all of their advantages.
Can you spell your name?
Sign here.
Yeah.
And what they do almost instantly is something really quite interesting. They institute some quaestors. And not the Republican style quaestors that we're used to coming across, where they're sort of in charge of the state treasury and stuff, and they do audits, and they're basically glorified accountants.
Yeah.
These are quaestors in the style of the Roman monarchical era. So,
really?
Yeah, quaestors patricians.
Why are they doing this?
They're going to do some investigating.
Oh.
So these quaestors have magisterial power in a way that quaestors of the Republic don't
have.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Now, one of these new quaestors is Caeso Fabius.
I see.
Perhaps
I see where we're going here.
Perhaps the brother of Quintus.
There's no nepotism going on here. Wink.
And when I say perhaps, I mean definitely.
Yeah.
So,
mind you, this is the thing. By our standards, that sounds dodgy. By Roman standards, that's
pretty normal.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It'd kind of be weird if you didn't hire your brother. Oh my god, I just realised something. It's JFK and Robert.
Nepotism.
Bobby.
The legacy of the Kennedy family.
I know.
And there is a second, Lucius Valerius Publicola, who is...
Ooh, Publicola.
I know. Brother of the man who overthrew the kings.
Man, this is like a super elite little collection of people we've got going on
These
here.
are like the cool elite, wealthy...
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't had to do anything yet so far, but my career is really taking off this year.
It's the Republicans, the next generation.
Yeah. Wait for it.
Yeah.
And we're going to have like special quaestors this year.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, wow, cool.
So hip and trendy. Oh my god.
Why are you doing this? Just you wait. And they have the ability to assemble the populace and...
the quaestors, this is.
Yes,
yeah.
and to conduct investigations. And they're interested in Spurius Cassius.
I knew you were going to say that.
Surprise! So it would seem that Spurius Cassius, whatever his political affiliations and allegiances are, he is not well connected with the Fabii or the other family.
Mistake!
Way to not be in with the Cornelii, dude.
You gotta have those elite connections.
So, things are not going well. They charge him with having aimed at tyranny. And...
This is where the Coriolanus comparison comes back to bite you in the ass.
and for daring to propose laws concerning the distribution of land.
How dare you.
Yeah.
Don't you wish we could actually have like charges like that against people now?
I can't believe you tried to be nice to people.
Yeah.
I'm done with that sort of thing.
I charge you with daring to call that a head of hair. Clearly you came over, Donald Trump.
Get in front of the committee and make your defense. Yeah. So they summon him to defend himself before the populace. Ouch.
The very populace that turned on him.
Yeah, so a very large crowd assembles. The quaestors get there. They start whipping up the frenzy. They talk about how he was calculating, that there was no good purpose. They talk about how with the Latins, you know, how could they be content to share their citizenship with the Latins?
Oh, this is playing right into their hands.
You know, he's over-elevated them, well beyond their station.
Poor Latins.
Pretty much. And, you know, they talk about Spurius Cassius having just bestowed the citizenship on them because they'd asked for it.
Crazy.
But even worse, then saying they could have a third of all of the spoils.
Insane. Insanity.
They're like, so not only are they citizens now, but they get 1/3 of the spoils. Can you believe that?
So what, you're like consul now? You're like making decisions?
Like, what are you thinking? And then they're like, and then the Hanutians, which is an overly preferential deal. You know, those guys weren't even groveling properly. They certainly not of the same stature as the Latins, and they get another 1/3 of the booty.
Oh,
they're like,
Cassius doesn't stand a chance.
And they're like, what do you think will happen if we get another ally that gets to become a citizen?
Then it'll be like 3/3.
Guess who's not getting any booty anymore? This is pretty much what they do.
Oh, how inflammatory.
They were like, this is absurd. There's only so many thirds you can have.
Yeah. We know that because we're good at math. Because we're the Romans.
They're like, so at this point, non-Romans are getting 2/3 of the booty. Just you wait. Just you wait. That's
your
just
priorities.
the start.
Your priorities are right out of order.
Yeah. So they're like, you don't really.
Poor Cassius.
Yeah, you don't really want to be part of
Can
this.
he even defend himself from such outrageous slander?
Well, possibly not.
I feel exhausted.
They also mention that they're like, you know, isn't it crazy that not only was he so against you as citizens as to like dispossess you of 2/3 of the booty, but he also tried to pass these laws by force when he couldn't get popular acclamation for them. He tried to force them through. This is a guy who just has no boundaries.
I feel like pointing out that 1/3 is still more than the patricians have ever given the plebeians.
I'll have none of your logic.
Yeah.
I'm whipping up the crowd into a frenzy.
Yeah. Continue.
I'm taking on the role of the quaestors.
Continue to whip. Whip it good.
So, you know, these sort of situations, obviously, being positioned in this sort of way, they sound terrible.
Does Cassius have any friends left?
They were like, wait for it. You see how, you know, he acts in opposition to the tribunes, to his colleague, to the Senate.
That doesn't look good.
Yeah, it doesn't look good, does it?
However, again, I'm just going to point out, maybe
you know,
all
of these people are interested in the best interests of the Commonwealth. And he's like, no. And they were like, guess what? We also have some secret evidence.
Oh, secret evidence! My favorite kind of evidence. What's the secret evidence?
I mean, I wish I knew, but it doesn't go into details. Secret evidence of him having aimed at tyranny.
So wait, they actually said we have secret evidence and we can't show you?
Yeah, like we have secret evidence. And presumably they go into detail about what that evidence is. But they're like, we have some information which he was distributing money to the Latins and the Hanutians. And then they were also funding him in his position so he could keep doing these things for their benefit. So there's he's paying them and they're paying him and bolstering his claims, and
conspiracy.
He's being corrupted.
Wow.
By the outsiders.
Oh, man, now I want to know what the secret evidence is.
He's actively colluding with the Latins and Hanutians. It doesn't matter if on paper they're citizens.
I suppose it's not completely out of the question, but...
I don't think so. I think that's the sort of thing that's quite highly likely.
Yeah, but then again, I would like to point out again that the tribunes are probably in the bay of the patricians, so...
Yeah.
You know, pot, kettle, black, whatever. That saying hadn't been invented yet.
All the kettles were black then.
That's right. They didn't know how to buff them up to a nice shine.
Not interested.
No.
So once they get through that sort of whipping up scenario,
sure, yeah.
The crowd is like kind of frothing for like, you know.
I had a feeling you were going to say that. Baying for blood, are they?
Pretty much.
Want to tear him limb from limb, do they?
Yeah. And then they were like, let us bring out our special witnesses.
Oh, special? Like, don't tell me we don't know who these people are.
No. We have no idea who they are.
What?
They produced many witnesses. Both
ridiculous.
Residents of Rome.
This is like a game show.
Look, considering that Livy covers this period of history with basically 2 lines, and Dionysius has page after page of mysterious unnamed people.
Fine.
I'm just going to revel in the drama of it all.
Yeah, no, I like the drama. But it really is seriously and what's in this secret box? It proves your guilt, but we're not going to show you what's in the secret box. And what's behind this curtain? We're not going to show you, but trust me, it's witnesses.
We're going to bring out some high-profile witnesses, but their faces will be covered to protect their identity. Right. Listen carefully. You might be able to pick who they are from their voice. But yeah, a whole bunch of high-profile witnesses, citizens, residents of the city, and other cities from their allies, not Latins or Venetians, presumably.
That sounds unlikely.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so from the other allies. Gotcha. Yeah.
And Dionysius says they were persons who were neither mean nor obscure.
Oh, okay, right. I thought you meant
as in small in reputation.
At first, I thought you meant they were nice. And I was like, I really didn't think the Romans cared, but that's nice. Before I could stop it, my scuffing sound came out.
He just has to die. Yeah. I know. I'm not a mean person.
Look at my toga. It's tie-dyed. You can trust me.
No. So all of these witnesses who come out and speak against Cassius obviously bolster the sort of really robust rhetorical claims that have been made by the quaestors.
This is actually a perfect example of how you really needed to be good at rhetoric, and this is why you went to school, to learn how to speak convincingly.
Yeah.
If you were a Roman boy. I was going to say child, but then I realised boy.
Wait a minute.
Yeah. Those ladies, they've got no persuasive powers whatsoever.
I'm sorry. I'd teach you in rhetoric if I could. Yeah. Oh, wait, I can. Cassius does get to come out after this and give his speech in defense.
Oh man, I was about to have a joke about gayness, but never mind.
But surprise, surprise, nobody's very convinced by his speech.
Poor Cassius. Has he been noted as a very good public speaker up to this point? Do you remember that?
Look, I can't recall.
No, me neither. Probably not, is my guess.
Well, I mean, he certainly had success.
Yeah, but not necessarily in
But at this point in time, everything has gone so far down against him that it's going to be very difficult.
There's no way he can recover from this.
Yeah. So he's sentenced to death. Good times.
I should be more shocked, sorry. Sorry guys, that's the one piece of evidence that Livy has given me about this entire proceeding, so that's why I'm not more shocked.
He does get sentenced to death. And they see him as somebody who they shouldn't drive into exile because they're concerned he will become another Coriolanus.
True. Okay, so this is an example of people learning from the mistakes of
the
history.
Past. Yes. Nice. We've seen this before. This guy has friends outside Rome. This is not going to end well.
I have to admit, for a patrician, fair call.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, I'd say so, given what has happened. And then we get what is this horrifying and yet, on the same time, probably quite quintessential moment.
Let me guess. His father puts him to death?
No.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
No. Wait for it.
Okay.
The quaestors lead him to the top of the precipice that overlooks the forum. That will be the Tarpeian Rock. And in the presence of all the citizens, they hurled him down from the rock.
Wow.
I don't think this has happened in the Republic so far.
No. I mean, just to refresh your memory in case you haven't listened to that episode, because I'm pretty sure we would have talked about it. Did we talk about it? I can't remember. Have we talked about the Tarpeian Rock before?
No.
Okay. Side note. This is rock.
Opening a parenthesis.
Yeah.
Perhaps you've heard of this Tarpeian Rock.
Yeah, it's pretty famous. In fact, I think there's actually, isn't it in Lura in the Blue Mountains in New South Wales, that there is a place called the Tarpeian Rock.
Asterisk for our Australian listeners already.
All I'm saying is, in Sydney, in the Sydney suburbs, there is a place called the Tarpeian Rock because it's super high and dangerous and stuff.
Yeah, and if you push people off it, they will die.
Exactly. So the Romans tend to throw traitors off the Tarpeian Rock.
They certainly do.
Yeah, and it stems back to, we're kind of in the semi-mythical time still, but the really, really mythical time of Roman history.
Yeah, the actual mythic time of Roman history.
It was the Sabines, wasn't it? When the Sabines were attacking the city. The legend is that back at the time when the Romans and the Sabines weren't getting along in the mythological sense, that a was it a Roman maiden decided to let the Sabines in like secretly in exchange for jewelry?
So Tarpeia is either positioned as a maiden, the daughter of a king, or in some accounts, she's positioned as Vestal Virgin.
True. Either way, she lets the Sabines in.
She lets the Sabines in because she has a bit of a crush on the king.
And isn't there also that thing where she like does a deal where she's like, give me what's on your arm, meaning their bracelet, and they give her like their shields and they crush her to death?
They crush her to death, yeah.
Either way, it doesn't end up well for her.
Bad times for women in history.
Yeah. There's this place called the Tarpeian Rock.
So, in conclusion,
when they throw off the
who
traitors.
just got thrown off it?
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, so Spurius Cassius, thrown from the Tarpeian Rock.
Huh.
A traditional punishment for those condemned to death. And this is where things get interesting from the perspective of Dionysius of Halicarnassus.
Okay.
Because he's like, guys...
that was pretty interesting. Throwing people off rocks is happening every day.
Yeah. But then he's like, wait a minute. This is just the most probable account that has been handed down from our source material.
Interesting, because I have a similar thing in Livy, but go.
And he's like, I'm going to give you the less probable version in my view.
Okay.
And he's like, because it's believed by a lot of people and it's definitely recorded in histories of people with good authority. So Dionysius here is like positioning himself as like, I'm somebody who reads a lot. Yeah. And I've looked at all the accounts and I've just told you...
wise.
I've just told you the most probable version of the story. But for the sake of transparency, let me go into some detail about the less probable versions. And I'll explain to you why I think they're less probable. So...
Historiography. Oh my gosh, methodology.
He's doing historiography. It's beautiful. He's like, it is said by some that while the plan of Cassius to make himself a tyrant was yet concealed from all the world, his father was the first to suspect him.
This is in my account. Okay, go.
And his father goes to the Senate, ordering his son to appear. His father then becomes both the informer and the accuser.
Wow.
And the Senate, it's in the Senate house in this version, that Spurius Cassius is condemned to die. His father takes him home and then kills him.
That is so weird. And this is where our sources must have had some sort of crossover. Because basically, listeners, I've had none of what Dr. G has been talking about up until the death of Cassius. Because Livy pretty much goes... So people get suspicious of Cassius, and then he's not consul anymore, and then he dies. But
way to flesh out a narrative.
Yeah, exactly.
Livy.
Yeah, but the detail is that so after the plebeians have turned on him and everyone's suspicious of him, blah blah blah, that he is condemned and executed. And then Livy says, as we are informed by an undoubted authority. Who's the authority? Nobody knows. But he's definitely talking about his source material here. He's got to be, And Livy does the same thing. He says, some say it was his father who puts him to death. Okay, who basically took him home, had an inquiry into his conduct, scourged him, and then executed him.
Oh, wow. Scourged him first. Scourging is basically beating somebody with sticks.
Yeah, really unpleasant. Yeah.
Very unpleasant.
Yeah. In fact, I think we mentioned it when Brutus had to watch his sons be scourged before they were put to death.
Right in front of him.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
He was like, yep, do it.
Yeah, then, this will interest you, Dr. G. Okay, then consecrated the allowance settled on his son to Ceres.
Oh, fascinating.
Yeah, and then, because of this money, a statue was erected with the inscription given from the Cassian family.
Wow.
Weird, huh?
How curious.
I know. But then Livy
Why
says...
Ceres, I wonder?
I don't know.
I'm going to have to look into this further.
I know. It's weird. I should have looked into that, actually. Then Livy goes on to say, much like Dionysius, that he has, however, found other accounts in other writers which he finds to be more credible. Why? Who are these other writers? Who knows?
Thanks, Livy.
But it's more than we normally get. And this is where we get the account of the fact that he was actually tried by the quaestors Fabius and Valerius, and that he was found guilty on a trial before the people, and that his house was razed by public decree.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But they don't talk about the manner of death.
No.
Interesting.
No. But yeah, it's interesting. Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah, and so thus falls Cassius.
Indeed. And so Dionysius sort of continues on to explore some of this in some more detail. And he's like, I don't want to dismiss this story out of hand. That his dad might have killed him.
Right, yeah.
And he's like, because the Romans have a tradition of this sort of thing.
Of killing their children, you mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
True.
Yeah. The Romans of the time, fathers killing their offending sons.
Very true.
Does not
Or
permit us...
daughters. We've seen daughters.
Yeah. It doesn't permit us to reject this account. He goes on to mention Brutus condemning his sons to die.
As we talked about, yep.
Yep. And he also talks about another example, Manlius, who's from a later period in history.
Yeah, okay. I was going to say that name sounds familiar.
Yeah. But much later in time. So I won't go into the details of that story. Listeners, I'm going to save those sorts of things for the future. But let's just say somebody was killed for being a deserter.
I have far more sympathy with the strong parental authority the Romans have in my recent years. I like strong parental authority.
Fair enough. He does acknowledge that he finds the first tradition more probable. Yeah, the trial in front of the assembly and the execution from the Tarpeian Rock.
It is so interesting that they both have this sort of, well, I've weighed up the accounts and this is what I've come up with in both of their accounts, isn't it? If only they mentioned more detail.
He does also talk about the house being razed to the ground. And the site remains vacant to this day.
Yes, I think Livy said that as well, yeah.
Except for a portion of it, which the state afterwards built the Temple of Tellus.
Yes.
So there's this sense in which there is a legacy of the land not being used. It's kind of fascinating for a man who was interested in distributing land to the people, for his land to remain unused.
Don't you think that's probably the Romans' point?
Even in death.
Yeah. Don't the Romans usually like punishments like that? Like, they have some sort of irony to them.
A punishment that lasts for eternity.
Yeah.
His goods are confiscated by the state. First offerings in various temples. Bronze statues to Ceres.
Maybe that's where that's where the crossover comes from, maybe.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean,
maybe it's because it's like the grain connection?
Often Ceres and Tellus are considered to be connected in some of their iconography and things like that. But yeah, perhaps the connection with grain, but it seems a bit strange.
It does.
Maybe.
We should look into that, yeah.
Yeah. But yes.
It's one of those things that you read and then you think later on, I really should have checked that out. It didn't seem odd at the time when I was reading it. Now it seems odd.
And he also goes on to say that there was some attempt made after the death of Spurius Cassius to also put to death his sons.
Well, that's just plain mean.
Yeah. And the senators...
How young are his sons?
I'm not sure.
He must be fairly old.
But they are referred to as the boys. So...
Okay. I'm going to say Cassius is clearly an oldish man.
Perhaps they haven't taken the toga of manhood just yet.
That's really weird when you think about it. Like, when you think back how many times he's been consul and stuff, he would not have been a young man, I don't think.
No.
It's weird that his father would have put him to death then. I mean, not like unthinkable, but it's weird, like, thinking of, like, a 70-year-old man putting to death, like, a 50-year-old.
Well, yeah, he'd have to submit to it.
Yeah, no, I know.
Or be held down.
Yeah, no, I know. I just mean it's still weird. Just the visual. The visuals.
The visuals.
Yeah.
It's the visuals I'm having trouble with.
I agree with you, Livy and Dionysius. I don't think this is the way it went down.
As it turns out, the sons get spared.
Well, how gracious. The two completely innocent people.
No, well, it becomes important because... they have a custom that's now established from this moment onwards.
Right.
That the sons shall be exempt from all punishment for any crimes committed by their fathers.
That just makes common sense. I know.
Well, yeah, but previously that wasn't true.
Yeah, I understand.
You could legitimately just be killed because your parents were idiots.
The Romans are evolving slowly.
So even in the case of terrible crimes, parricide, tyranny, being a traitor, as a child, you weren't affected by that.
Well, good for the Romans.
Yeah, look, I'm not saying you don't suffer in other ways.
Yeah, yeah.
Presumably.
The shame.
Yeah.
The stigma.
I'm like, you're alive, but
yeah.
How do you live?
How do I live without you?
So this brings me finally, after a good 2 episodes worth of information, to the end of the life of Spurius Cassius.
Well, should we pause there, Dr. G?
I think we should.
All right. Well, stay tuned for more agrarian fun.
Oh, there's more coming.
Oh, yeah. And warfare aplenty. Don't you worry about that in our future episodes. Next week, however, we're going to have a fan request.
Week?
Well, sorry, not next week. Sorry, next episode. Whatever. Week in the figurative sense. Next episode, we have a special listener request.
Ooh. Do we just now?
Indeed. Stay tuned.
Ooh. So before we wrap it up
sorry.
entirely,
I totally forgot about the match.
I see you preparing to like launch us off, but I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We've got to give this some ratings.
We do.
It's got to be a partial pick.
Indeed.
For a potential 50 eagles.
Yes. Golden eagles.
Golden eagles.
Golden eagles. All right. Military clout.
Yeah, look, I'm giving it a sweet nothing.
Yep. Big fat 0.
Man, it was just some politics and some people making some stuff. Diplomacy.
Seriously, like, out of touch with warfare stuff. Okay, yeah, diplomacy. I feel like there was less negotiating in this episode than the last one.
Look, there was no diplomacy.
Yeah, it's just a trial, so I don't think that can count, can it? Nothing
for
nothing,
that.
Yeah. Expansion?
Nope. Sweet nothing.
You're still
Unless they're expanding their minds with rethinking their moral outlook on how they treat sons.
I thought that's going to come under Virtus.
Ooh, Virtus.
Yeah, Virtus. Okay, so,
Look, I can't give a lot of people a lot of credit for any weird twists. I feel like everything was like the trial, the way things are whipped up. This is all very, despite the fact that they're arguing against Cassius as like this demagogue, they're basically doing the same thing in response.
Well, yeah, exactly. It's all rhetoric.
And they're like, how about it? This guy.
This is why I kind of love and hate Rome at the same time. It really comes down to how good you are at public speaking.
Always.
Which I love,
but...
Okay, so I don't know. I feel like there's going to be something for the slight change that you mentioned at the end with the whole not putting to death his children thing.
You want to give 1 for that?
I think so. Think of the children, Dr. G. Think of the children.
They live. They live.
Yeah. Okay, citizen score. Well, they've got to be pretty happy, in a sense, because they kind of got what they wanted.
Yeah, but have they just been hoodwinked?
Totally. Idiots. Yes, their lives aren't going to be any better.
Look, yeah. So they're really it's really not clear how things are going to go for them. So I'd say that's still a 5. They're still on a knife edge, really.
Yeah, okay. I'll give them 5, yep. So that's wow, I think this is a new high road.
The lowest partial pick.
6 out of 50 possible golden eagles. Rome, I really hope you pick up your game.
You got a long way to climb.
I'm glad we have a special episode next time. I needed to recover from this horrible, horrible score.
I think Rome needs some time to think about its values.
It does. All right, Dr. G, a pleasure as always.
Until next time.
Indeed.